Chiefs Kingdom, welcome back. Welcome into the AP Film Room, the first edition of the 2023 season. We are back here, your favorite geeks, talking about football, talking about Chiefs football. I'm Ron Kopp Jr., the lead analyst at the site, arrowheadpride.com. With me, as always, two of my favorite film analysts in the world, Caleb James at CJ Scoobs and Nate Christensen at NateCH32 on Twitter. Caleb, we'll start with you, man. How you feeling today? We actually got some good news after an 0-1 kind of start to the season. We got Chris Jones back in the fold. I don't know. Should we watch this film and kind of bury it in the backyard after this? What are you thinking?
Just from a defensive standpoint, it's always going to be a much different game with Jones in there versus when he's not in there. But I think with the deal that they got done today, it's kind of weird. I don't think there was really like a clear-cut winner or loser from either side of it because neither side really accomplished what they said they wanted to do when you're looking like currently and long-term. But at least he is going to be back in the building and getting ready to suit up here soon.
Nate, Chris Jones is back, like we just mentioned. I mean, you were someone who, like me, Nate, Caleb looked at the kind of the positive of the game. We looked at the negative maybe on the offensive side. Are we burying the tape after this game? Travis Kelce back, or is there more to take away from this game? How are you feeling after week one?
Well, you shouldn't bury it because there's a lot you need to kind of learn from it and stuff. But I will say, week one in the NFL is always terrible. Like every team always plays bad, especially on offense. I mean, if I had $1 for every time I saw a bad snap this weekend, I probably wouldn't need to have a job anymore. Like there's just bad snaps everywhere, turnovers everywhere. No one could block, so. That's certainly part of it, but it would be wrong to just be like, well, it's week one, so that's the solve for all problems. So you have to be able to parse what's real, what's not real, and things like that.
Yeah, well, I don't know about you, but it was weird that they raised the Super Bowl banner preseason week 4. I thought that was odd. Now I'm with you. I think the receiver room, and that'll be kind of the last topic of the day. We'll finish off with that. There is definitely some stuff where after some excitement this preseason, you can take away some stuff. But we talked about Chris Jones off the top. Let's talk about the defense. Caleb, you were the one who looked at the defense for us this week. Holding the Lions, an explosive offense with a good offensive line, explosive playmakers to 2 touchdowns. Go ahead and show us what we can learn about the defense from week 1.
Yeah, and while I'm getting into it, I think that it was one of those games from the defense. And with it, you knew that they were going to be really fired up. You knew that they were going to play with a lot more passion. Spags was going to, give us a real Spags-like performance. But really, with everything that happened, it was a good game. There's still a lot of chances where they could have been better. I've seen people who've been responding to like the article I wrote and some things I put on Twitter. They're like, the defense didn't cost them the game. And I'm like, that's fair 100%. They only gave up the 2 touchdowns. They did allow that one drive deep into the red zone, but McDuffie forced a fumble. But they also didn't do anything to really specifically win the game. When it came down to it, when they, in the fourth quarter, they got off the field a couple of times, but really they did give up the go-ahead touchdown, and then they couldn't get off the field there when Detroit was trying to clock it at the end. And I think a lot of that, has to do with they were missing their key disruptor. They struggled to get pass rush. Early on, they got some pressure on Goff, and they did so, by blitzing. Their base front didn't really do a whole lot. But just by looking here, this is one of the first third downs of the game. You got Willie Gay at the bottom of the screen, and, something that you'll see a lot with what Spags has done, when he brings someone's dropping, whether it be the end of the line or whether it be off of the middle. And this time it was actually, go figure, Derek Nottie drops as Willie Gay's rushing off the edge, and they end up forcing an incompletion on a third down. I think the reason we see a lot of this, and you take a look at the front with Karlaftis, Nottie, Tershawn Wharton, and Mike Dana in there. And this is like a 3rd down and 5, so they still kind of have to maintain some semblance of a base defense. But with this look, they are able to get some pressure right in Goff's face with Gay going through there. And, just popping back for a second on that one, you can see Noddy, he actually drops back and actually times it up well and gives the tight end a little bit of a bump. So Spags was getting creative early. It wasn't just four-man pressure. Now they started to show some stuff out of the sub front, and it's more of a speed package that they have for their defensive line. As you see, you can already see they have multiple defensive backs on the field. You got Mike Edwards and Brian Cook right there, and Trent McDuffie. We can touch on that in a little bit, but I got highlighted in the box over here. I have FAU lined up on the edge. You got Mike Dana as like a 4-eye 3-tech, and Nick Bolton also. Karlaftis drops, and you're going to get Dana and FAU run this TE stunt with Bolton going, just kind of trying to pick a side on the center. And they do a pretty good job because we'll show you in a minute. Karlaftis did a good job there of dropping, but really look at the pressure from FAU. That's a high effort play. It's a high energy play. And, it's something that he can do early on. He can participate in the stunt games and twist games. He's athletic enough, but you see the closing speed there once he does get going into it. And they complete the pass, yeah, but they're short of the sticks. That's what Spags wants. Ugly punt the next play. Here's the wide view, though. And actually, if you look down at the bottom of the screen along the line of scrimmage, the key guy on this play was actually Karlaftis here, because you'll see what they kind of are. Goff's looking for the tight end here, but Karlaftis dropped back. He did a good job, and he forced it up. Goff has to scramble, and he throws it to the guy that's short of the sticks, and the Chiefs get off the field momentarily. Like I mentioned, that fake punt kind of threw a monkey wrench in things. But let's talk about FAU for a second. He only rushed the snapper 13 plays. He did make a little bit of an immediate impact, and I think this should excite people because this is like not some bum offensive line he's going against. Like Taylor Decker's been in the league 10 years, and he started every game at left tackle. Like, you don't just do that if you're just like, an unreliable player. So he's coming out here. He's lined up wide on this third down play, and he comes up and he gives a big bull rush. Take it back for a second here. But you can see, and he's just comes off a lot lower, and he wins the inside hand battle right there. And now he's got Decker off balance. He's pushing the pocket back. And then as the guard is trying to come over and give a shove, Decker is getting blown back here. So he almost comes off and almost gets a safety, forces another short completion. It's actually a really good pass by Goff to even escape this or get it off. And he does get it off. They get, short of the sticks on third down. Nice tackle there. And here's just the wide view. You can take a look at the defensive backs. Everyone's covered up. They try to put Justin Reed in some space versus the rookie, but he was up and down all game. Felt like a lot of down, but he made the play there. And then how about our guy Mike Dana? He's a guy, him and Noddy felt like they're playing with a little more of a chip on their shoulder than the other guys because they've been in the room with Chris Jones the longest. They've had to participate through it a lot, and Dana's here in that 4-eye 3-tech again with FAU next to him, and he executes a beautiful inside pass rush move, and as Goff starts to work up in the pocket because he didn't like what he sees, the Chiefs collapse it. Let's just take it back, and he's going against Jonah Jackson. Jonah Jackson's been in the league a while. He's been consistent starter, but you see first off pad level there, and that's been something consistent I noticed out of the defensive line. They're all playing with great pad level, and they're all trying to win that inside hand battle. So, shout out to Joe Cullen for that one. He gets the extension. He's long-arming, and Goff doesn't like what he sees. You see the DBs, they got everything covered. They're running with everyone. So then he just comes back underneath once Goff steps up. Karlaftis had some nice hands over there on the left side to disengage Penei Sewell. If, Dana can't get there, then it looked a lot like Karlaftis was. So just overall good team pressure there. But Dana's going to get credit with the sack in his contract season. And I think we're just going to look at the other angle of that. You can kind of see everyone's, covering their guy up, and the D-line just collapses it. But now we get into some bad. Later in the game, they start to blitz out of necessity. And this time the Lions get him. This is that big 3rd down and 13 late in the game. And you can see it. They're going to bring Snead off the edge, but they can't quite get there. Karlaftis had dropped, but Goff does a good job. He knows he's going to have just enough time to find the window there. And it looked like it was Sam Laporta once again. No, it wasn't Sam Laporta. They were closing in on Laporta. They had the receiver there at the top. But then we just come back down here, and the Chiefs are in like that sub front again, but the Lions had to know something's up. And even in this situation, even though they got pressure sometimes out of this, Spags didn't necessarily trust them all the way, even when they did have like Wharton, Dana, FAU, and George in there all at the same time. And Penei Sewell actually, he almost flies out here to take Snead, but he at the last second, he just makes sure that, FAU's not going to go anywhere. And look how, that's the game right there. Because if the Chiefs get off the field there, they prevent Detroit from going down to score. It's that close sometimes, firing through a tight window. They got, George had the one good rep of him in coverage, and then he just gets a little bit uncomfortable there. And then what I thought was key in the game was on these first downs, they caught the Chiefs in their base looks, especially late in the game. And here they do it. There's no pass rush, and it's just going to be a big tackle or a big gain for Detroit. He got Josh Reynolds on that comeback route. Bad angle by Snead. But the reason why these plays were so effective for Detroit is because the Chiefs, they're seeing the 21 personnel, the two backs, the tight end. They got their rundown looks in, and they got, Noddy and Dickerson on the inside. They're not going to do anything. This is where they're missing Chris Jones, because maybe even though it's a running situation, there's a chance Chris Jones maybe splits one of these double teams and gets his hands up in the backfield, forces an incompletion. But that's kind of all I had for it. And yeah, they were doing a good job with what they could do, but they're still missing Jones there. But it should leave some optimism on the table that, there's a chance that they're going to be able to come in here at some point with Chris Jones and possibly put up a really competitive defense that's able to make those big stops late in the game, unlike they did this week.
Yeah, no, the defensive line was it surprised me how well they were able to manage the game in terms of, they didn't give up a bunch of explosive runs. They did give up some ground, got pass rush, like you said, in moments, but maybe not all the time. But hey, you're not going to against that line without your best pass rusher. Nate, FAU is your guy. We all were very high on him, obviously, but, as draft nerds, you were one of the highest on him too. Did you feel any better about him contributing right away after Thursday? Because I might have. I didn't think we'd kind of see that kind of success against a guy like Taylor Decker right away. What other things did you feel about the defense?
Well, just overall, I thought he and George Karlaftis played really good games, especially George Karlaftis. I thought that was the best he's ever played, and I don't even think it's a game that I would put close. Both run and pass. Like, Detroit was trying to run like duo. They were trying to run just like a lot of like downhill runs, and they'd run them right at Jordan. George was just blowing them up, like right in the backfield, like every single time. As a pass rusher, I thought George looked a little more fluid, being able to kind of synchronize between kind of like a movement on either shoulder a little bit more, using his hands a little bit more. About Felix, yeah, Felix does this kind of weird thing where like he obviously has like the speed, the flexibility, like that's immediate, but like he doesn't like have a lot of power. You can like tell that immediately, but he has the ability to just get like really low and just kind of like throw blockers around from like oblique angles. So like he's able to like in certain scenarios kind of generate some pass rush kind of torque and power in the pocket. But he's looked good so far. He still looks a little bit not up to speed on the strength part of the NFL yet, but he clearly has it from a speed and flexibility standpoint. I think that's a good element to what the Chiefs just haven't had in the past.
Well, Nate, you're up. You are going to be talking about the offensive side of the ball, a little less positive to talk about. And while you're getting going, shout out KL368 following along on YouTube. Appreciate you watching. Asked real quick, was anybody surprised by the lack of Jalen Watson? I don't think so. It seems like Joshua Williams has kind of taken that job for now, which is good for him. I think one of them needed to earn the job, and it does seem like Joshua Williams has kind of earned that role. So you can kind of expect that moving forward, I would say KL368. But Nate, take it away.
Yeah, there's no other way to say it. The offense was bad on Thursday. And there was kind of, the red herring is drops, right? Because drops are incredibly obvious. But the fact is, unless Kadarius Toney drops like 4 passes every week, they're probably not going to matter. Like that was probably just a one-game scenario where drops just really hurt the team. What I kind of wrote about for Arrowhead Pride, and I would suggest go reading the article because I have a lot more clips and stuff, is that I think there's a bigger concern about the team, and some of it's going to be leave with Travis Kelce, but I'm a little bit more worried about it after this game, and I think it's kind of just being able to tie the run and pass game together. And part of it this week is I thought that the run game was like poorly designed. I'm far away from a run expert, but I thought there was just some things I didn't like at all. So I'm just going to have a couple clips to highlight that. This first play, maybe this is me being like nitpicky or whatever, but they're going to run a short, like jet sweep to the short side of the field. They're in 13 personnel. They're under center. And they're going to run to the strong side of the field here. And when you kind of play it out, this cornerback does not travel with this. So when they run this, this is basically 4-on-4 with these 4. And you have these 6 on the backside, basically, because they're not in effect. And you have 5 people over here. So when you're running the short side of the field, you're not giving Kadarius Toney a lot of space to win one-on-one. And he has to have to go beat an unblocked man. You're asking your tight end to come all the way out and try and block this corner on the edge when the Chiefs could not block the Lions cornerbacks all night. This is, I believe, in the fourth quarter, or at least in the second half. You're making him run to the short side of the field on second and short. And what I was kind of wrote about is what are logistic counters off this? So let's just say you don't hand the ball off here. You're not going to pass the ball because your one receiver to this side is gone. So you have all this quarterback head up on this tight end. So that concept's taken away. You can try and throw to Pacheco in the flat, but you have 3 bodies there. So there's not really a realistic passing counter off of this. You can run maybe zone weak or something like that, but you still don't have a great numbers advantage. You have 3 defensive linemen down here for these 3. You have a tight end going on an edge. So your second level players are going to be free. So my kind of thing is what was the advantage of this from the defense? Why would the defense not react immediately? Why would these guys not react to this motion? So I just kind of had a problem with this kind of run design in general. It goes for a TFL that doesn't go anywhere. Another big issue was wide receiver run blocking. That was actually a much bigger issue when I rewatched the game. And it was particularly an issue for Rashee Rice. And that makes sense. It's his rookie. It's his first debut. But I think what the Chiefs were trying to do was they were trying to essentially use him like a tight end. So because Travis Kelce wasn't there, they didn't get the benefits of 12 and 13 personnel. So their theory was if we get one of our wide receivers and use him as a tight end, maybe we could get some of the kind of replicate what Kelce does, but that just didn't work at all. The Chiefs are going to run it looks like split zone, but it kind of plays more like a counter because they're going to kind of zone block over here. Rashee Rice is going to sift block across. Pacheco is actually going to follow the sift block, which is why it's kind of more like a counter run. And Rice is just going to, go block this quarterback at the edge, but he's just going to whiff. And the quarterback doesn't necessarily make a tackle. Blake Bell kind of loses his block here. I don't love the path Pacheco takes either. This is just one play, but the wide receiver run blocking was kind of a problem. The Chiefs really struggled to get the Lions cornerbacks blocked at all. And they just kept making plays all night over and over. So that was kind of a problem for the offense. The last play I have here, this is actually a pass play, but this is kind of what I'm talking about, marrying run and pass together. That was sort of the problem. The Chiefs are actually going to have a great design here. They're going to motion Kadarius Toney in, and they're going to run kind of Y leak, but out of 11 personnel, and use Toney as the guy that leaks, and it does come open. The problem is they're going to have no great block Aiden Hutchinson. And the design of this is fine. The execution is fine. Kadarius Toney is open. This is a explosive way to win that. And this cornerback takes the complete cheese on this fake screen over here. This is going to be a huge play if Patrick Mahomes has time to throw it. But because of the fact that you are playing out of 11 personnel and you're putting not a great blocking tight end on Aiden Hutchinson, there's just not going to be enough timing. So these are individual clips. There's, some individual issue with all of them. But to me, it was kind of showing the Chiefs just didn't have a congruent plan on how can we marry the run game and the pass game together. How can we build concepts off each other? They were just throwing a bunch of concepts together and seeing which ones stick, and none of them stuck. And to me, that's a little bit of a long-term concern because I understand that you had to throw the offensive game plan out 2 days before the game because Kelce was gone. But Travis Kelce might not play every game this year. I mean, I know he's been remarkably healthy, but he might play this week. But what happens if he has to miss 3 or 4 weeks? What's the offensive plans going to be? What are the roles going to be? How can they run the football? How can they get good looks at that Travis Kelce? It was a concern because, frankly, it was a mess. I don't think anyone's blameless for it, but especially Andy Reid. I did not think Andy Reid came out with good designs and good game plans at all without Travis Kelce. And that's massively concerning for the Chiefs, kind of short and long term.
Well, and they run so much outside zone, like we always talk about, off tackle runs. It makes sense that if the receivers aren't blocking well, some of those weren't being executed. I was someone that has been on here saying, hey, these offensive tackles fit his run game more But does that really matter if his running backs still don't fit his run game very well? The guys getting to the off tackle. Caleb, any quick thoughts on the offense? Maybe the run game, just maybe how the offensive line played in the run game, just overall what you kind of felt like struggling, what happened struggling with the offense?
Yeah, it felt like it was a little bit bland, but also it felt like to me maybe they had to revert back to just some more basic looks because Kelsey wasn't going to be in there, so they might have had to scrap some plays that they just knew Kelsey, or they just knew that Gray and Bell couldn't do. And I didn't think Gray and Bell were that good in the blocking game either. It was kind of an ugly game for them in that regard. But I don't know. I wish they would have run a little like more power and counter, because I think that's still where they're really good at, as opposed to some zone stuff. But I mean, less than 4 yards per carry for the running backs. That's pretty ugly, especially when they were going to be wanting that group to kind of carry the load here for a little bit.
So here's my concern. So obviously when Travis Kelsey returns, the run looks will just get better because the Chiefs shredded teams last year out of 12 and 13 personnel, both in run and pass. They were passing the ball like one of the best teams of the league out of 13 personnel. And then if teams were like, well, we have to try and stop this somehow, that the Chiefs would just run the ball. But I'm a little bit worried about the tight end room kind of being able to do that again this year. Like Jody Fortson wasn't like a great player for the Chiefs, but he's better than Blake Bell and Matt Bushman, both run and block. I would say he's probably a better run blocker, and he's certainly a better wide receiver. And the concern obviously is like if Travis Kelsey maybe has to have his snaps limited a little bit more this year, if he is injured maybe a little bit more, the Chiefs are going to have to try and replicate some of those looks they have because they just don't have the wide receiver talent to have a great passing game, frankly. Like Patrick Mahomes is a great player, Travis Kelsey is a great player, but these wide receivers are not good enough to, frankly, win on their own. I think we all saw that last Thursday. Like they need help, and the way the Chiefs gave wide receivers help last year was with all the personnel and all the different ways they could, throw vertically from, with tight ends. Their tight ends. The reason why the offense was good last year was the tight ends. It was not the wide receivers. And if the tight ends are suddenly not as good, it gets concerning because I don't think the wide receivers are good enough to make that up.
Yeah, no, the thing I like you mentioned in the tight ends specifically, because like Noah Gray, he's been really nice in that second role, but I think you saw this week, why he's maybe not ready for that primary role. He doesn't move nearly as well as Kelsey, honestly. Like maybe, I don't know, he used to move, maybe he's put on, a little too much muscle trying to get better at the blocking, but he just doesn't really move that well to me, honestly. I know he had that huge play. But there's a few routes, and hey, you kind of transitioned for me. I'm going to be talking about the receivers and kind of the struggles they had themselves. And there was a few plays where, Noah Gray, I'll show you coming up where, it's Noah Gray's spacing that kind of screwed things up, or Blake Bell's spacing. Actually, it's one of these first few plays here, so we'll get it going, talking about the receivers. And I'm mentioning it, but it really was route spacing was like the primary thing for me right off the bat in what we saw. These are staple pass concepts we're about to see. This is the Chiefs running their traditional RPO slant, right? Sky Moore's the slant right here. Tony comes across in motion. He's supposed to clear out the inside, right? He's going to get vertical right away, clear out this linebacker as best he can. If not, just clear out the safeties that the linebacker bites. The linebacker doesn't bite, right? And so that's why Mahomes hands this off. But you're just going to see Tony just just not even try to get vertical right away, just kind of mess with him. You just need to get out the way. Because if Mahomes did pull that, you still would be able to Sky might be able to get underneath that. But Tony kind of messed around at the top right there. Just clunky route spacing. You're going to see it on the second play here. I mentioned Blake Bell at the top. Blake Bell right here running that little stick route, right? A little Y stick. Just what is this? And I guess it wasn't Y stick because Rasheed comes under him, but just three people right in the same area, and Blake Bell gets to the ground by the end of the play. Just not good spacing whatsoever. Rasheed kind of has to hesitate into his route at the bottom of the screen right here. This is textbook, in my opinion, that Tony needs to adjust his route here. I think Mahomes wants to go to him right here, but he runs the pivot route right into the outside leverage. When I believe if you have that outside leverage, you may want to just sit right, not pivot back out. You may want to just sit right here. I think you need to adjust your route there. And I think Mahomes wanted him. If you look, watch him his way, he goes his way first, sees Tony tried to pivot back out, kind of has to go back. That's just not playing the preseason, not playing, not being in, at the Texas camps, right? That was one thing we kind of heard about with Tony. He wasn't down there with all the other guys as much. Here, these are deep crossers. We see the Chiefs do this with they're in their 13 or 12 personnel sets. I guess just 12 personnel sets where they have the 2 receivers going deep. Even if it's Justin Watson and MVS, you're still going to see a little hesitation at the top here. Like they just didn't get exactly on the right page. That's off-season stuff. That's OTA stuff that you should be getting down. And then obviously this was one of the big plays too, the mesh route where Richie, I think this is on Richie. I think he does take the wrong route initially. I think he realizes he's going over the top when he needs to go underneath. And by the time he's doing it, it's too late, because if he just goes underneath right away, he clears that and Tony has some space right here. But since he has to pivot at the last second, that puts him, gives him a second late to the spot, and then he's in front of Tony. So that one's on Richie. This one isn't on Tony. But Richie James is a first-year receiver, and just another example of, hey, maybe it is a little tougher than we give it credit for, as a first-year receiver to be with the Chiefs offense and play right away, because there's just a lot to think about and worry about with these routes, right? Here's more of them. Here's where Noah Gray maybe factors into this. You're going to see him at the top here. He's going to chip, or he's going to block for a second, then release. So it's going to be a delayed release, but I just think he takes way too long to get into his release, and he doesn't threaten enough. And maybe this is on Rasheed too, but you're going to see this C3 corner, this cover 3 corner, kind of playing that third back there. He's just going to sink right into the route that Mahomes wants to go to. And if Gray gets his attention at all anymore, Rasheed might have some space down the sideline here for a big play, but Noah Gray just, in my opinion, this might just be him being Noah Gray and not Travis Kelce. Maybe the corner doesn't respect him as much, but I just think you could have a little quicker get out there, because you know what the play call is. You're trying, to kind of maybe bring that corner back in and this is the last drive of the game, I believe. They need a big play. This was that 3rd and 20, I believe. You're going vertical. I just think, maybe getting quicker out into your route would have helped that corner stay home, would have helped Rasheed get some space down the sideline. So it's just another example to me. But here's another Noah Gray one where I think he just runs the wrong route. And I think you're going to actually see it in the way he kind of, right after he sits right here, he kind of realizes, oh, shoot, maybe I should have gone vertical. It looks like he might be just turning to run block, but it looks like to me, I don't know. It looks like to me like he's like, oh, shoot, like we both ran to the same spot. And that's why the safety was able to just drive so hard on the ball, because they were both in the exact same spot over the middle of the field, way too close. He maybe should have spread it out. So I just feel like it's another example of bad route spacing. And then you're going to see it here on this double post where Mahomes tries to go to Richie deep. They just end up so close to each other. This safety, when he turns to go with MVS, he can just easily turn his hips and he's right back where the ball is. There's just these spacing things, and that could be on Andy Reid too and the coaching staff, right? This isn't necessarily just on the players. This could be on how the designs are being, put out there. But there are some on the players as well, and this was one of the prime examples to me. Kadarius Toney, his great night, sarcastically I say, he runs this deep curl at the sticks, right? We're gonna see, the sticks are about right here. He gets past the sticks well, but he just keeps going, and he just keeps going to the field side too. And you're going to see it from the end zone angle. He just keeps moving, man. Just stop right in this area somewhere. You're just going to have to stop right here. It's an easy completion, but he just keeps leading Mahomes' throw into the linebacker. And hey, great play by the linebacker. That's one thing that is important here. Jack Campbell makes an absolutely great play. Shout out Caleb. You were prepping him up. I was saying maybe Andy Reid would put him in the spin zone in his first game, but he looked very much ready to play. He was making plays all over the place, but still an easy play for Tony to make if he just settles into a zone right here. But here's the biggest play to me that really exemplified one of the biggest themes of me from this game that I'm worried to say right here. But what is up with Sky Moore? What is up with the Chiefs allowing him to lead the receiver room in snaps, I should say, in snaps for this game, but only getting him 1 target in rhythm? He had 3 targets in the game, but 2 of them were kind of in desperation after the play, and this is actually going to be one of them. But he just was rarely the primary route on a play. He was a lot of the motion man, right? He was a lot of the decoy routes, just running to the flat, not really actually being a true route in the play. I just didn't quite understand why Sky wasn't given more of an opportunity. I think that could be an indictment on him, but this play might show you how Mahomes feels about him to an extent. And you're going to see that he's going to run this in breaker here. MVS is going to take this near side safety with him, and it's going to open up a window right here for Sky to come open. It's third down. You're going to move the sticks with a completion here to Sky. Mahomes is looking at him. He pumps him and comes back because why? I do think there's some reasons. I do think there's a chance that he sees MVS. He sees this play side safety kind of come up maybe a little bit and knows that MVS might be coming loose, and that his peripheral vision sees that last second and says, shoot, I could have that. But then as soon as he turns for that, Aiden Hutchinson's blowing up. Is it Jawan Taylor at that? Well, I guess it's just more of a loop play, kind of looping in there. But I do think that could have something to do with this. But at the same time, man, and you'll see it from the end zone angle too, there's a clear window to me to hit Sky right here for a quick first down when you need it in the second half. Sky is not even in the picture yet, and Jack Campbell's all the way almost on the other hash. He is on the other hash. Mahomes has already pumped it. He was only reacting to Mahomes' pump. Some people on Twitter were telling me that the reason Mahomes didn't throw is because the window was too tight and Sky didn't settle too hard. I think Sky settled quite a bit. He throttled down enough. You don't want to throttle too hard down because you want to catch the ball and go. You want to catch the ball and get into space right away. He had plenty of space to work. Look how much space he has to work. If he did get the ball right there with that safety chasing MVS, if Mahomes just hits him in space, he has a lot of room to go. But it just tells me that maybe 15 doesn't feel super great about throwing to Sky in the rhythm of a play, throwing to Sky, as the primary route. And obviously he tries to make up for it late by throwing it back here. And now everyone's like, oh, Sky doesn't catch it. Sky dropped the pass. Well, to me, it's just peculiar that Sky didn't really get much of the primary route opportunities, the true, I kind of thought he'd step up in Kelsey's place as getting a lot of targets, especially with Juju not here anymore. And we didn't really see that. And that might be a something on him. And I hate to say that because I was someone that was high on Sky this year, but with all these other receivers, looking like they can provide different things, or Rashee Rice showing some things, Justin Ross, pushing his way into the fold, this team isn't going to maybe lean on one guy for all the targets. And at some point, where is Sky going to contribute? So I don't know. I do want to see it later on. I want to see Kelsey back in the fold, Nate, like you mentioned. Maybe these guys are just all more complementary weapons, and we overrated how much they need kind of that key piece, for them to play around. But I don't know. Let's throw it back to you, Nate. Just how did you feel about the receivers, and are you more or less, are you changing your feelings about them after 1 week?
Yeah, I am a little bit. I was higher on Sky Moore, but I mean, he was open so many times. On the first drive of the game, on 3rd and 7, they ran a switch.
Yeah, I should have showed that one. Yeah,
to get him on the slot fade, and Pat's just staring at him and won't throw it. He just went it was a good throw to the back shoulder to McKinnon, but the concept was designed for Sky Moore, and he would not throw it. So there appears to be a little bit of a disconnect between Patrick Mahomes and what the offense believes. Yeah, you have the clip here. The offense believes in Sky Moore. It appears the coaching staff trusts him a little bit more. I mean, even on that Rashee Rice play on the 3rd and 20, Sky is open on the backside dig, and Mahomes just telegraphed throwing to Rice on the drag, the over route. It's 3rd and 20, so maybe that's why. But the point is, I wrote about this for Red Pride, so go check this out tomorrow. But the Chiefs are in a unique spot, or at least Patrick Mahomes is in a unique spot where when he started his career, he got plenty of chances to develop chemistry with Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, DeMarcus Robinson, Sammy Watkins. When he first entered, he had opportunities from that, not Sammy Watkins, but those other guys. The previous offseason, he had an opportunity to throw to them. He threw those guys for 3 or 4 years. Last year was a bunch of veterans who knew what he's doing. This is unique for Holmes. It's a bunch of new players who maybe don't know the offense as well. He hasn't had a lot of time to develop chemistry with. He's going to have to learn to trust these guys because the Chiefs don't have veterans that they can just rely on. They have Justin Watson. They have MVS. That's it. And Travis Kelce. But they don't have the reliable options to, let these guys slowly develop. So the Chiefs are going to have to try and accelerate the development of Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney. But if the quarterback loses trust in those two, it gets scary fast. This is kind of the concern all offseason. And we were all kind of well, if Kadarius Toney's healthy and Sky Moore takes the step, it won't matter. And maybe those guys still will. It's only been 1 week. But time will run out quick. You can't be in week 7 still being well, when is Sky Moore going to break out? Because at that point, the offense will struggle. Maybe the losses rack up, and then you're starting to head into the stretch run being like, what are we doing at wide receiver?
Man, that very well said. This receiver room is all of a sudden the most, important, most scrutinized position, on the team. And it should be, with Mahomes as the quarterback. Caleb, any final thoughts before we get out of here on the receiver room from week one, or just kind of moving forward?
They've fallen far from having 7 wide receiver ones this offseason. But, even as bad as it was, I do think, you have to kind of sit there and say if they even catch 3 of the passes that they drop, that's a completely different ball game. And I'm not trying to make an excuse because the receivers were bad, but we'd feel a lot better right now if we'd seen those mistakes, but somehow they still pulled out a win. So they've got a lot of work to do. I think they probably in the back of their minds knew they might need some work. I think maybe that's why they thought they might have to rely on the defense early during the stretch or during the early part of the season. So that's good that Chris Jones is going to be back in the fold there, even if he's not playing, full capacity reps yet this week in Jacksonville. But, overall, you can see the image they have for the team right now. I think it's just early, so you can't really tell. And, the team they played is probably going to be a pretty good team. The Lions are going to be in it for a while this year. Like, they're too good at very critical positions to, fall off the face of the earth that much. They have a lot of firepower on offense. Aiden Hutchinson looked like a young superstar on defense there. So overall, if they're going to lose by 1 point, it's a good thing they got that out of the way early. But, when Kelsey comes back, it'll help the receivers. But like Nate mentioned earlier, if Kelsey misses time later on, how much are these guys going to be able to take that next step from now until having to possibly go back out there without Kelsey?
Got a whole 16 more weeks to figure that out. So that's great. We'll be coming back to you every week, breaking down the X's and O's, hopefully coming back next week with a win to break down in Jacksonville. Don't want to start 0-2. That's one thing. You don't want to start 0-2. That's not good. No matter how good you are. I know the Bengals, made it to the AFC Championship last year after 0-2, but it's still a little bit of a hole to climb out of. So Chiefs, we'll get it done in Jacksonville this week. We'll be back to you guys live next Tuesday night, breaking down the X's and O's from that. But appreciate you joining. Appreciate you watching. Make sure you do follow all of us on Twitter, on X, I guess. And make sure you like the page, follow the page, arrowheadpride.com. We're bringing you guys daily content. Pete Sweeney, the boss man's always got good stuff coming, and so do the rest of the crew. These guys, great film breakdowns. Everything's up on the site, so go check it out. Appreciate you guys. Have a good night, and go Chiefs.